But unless the film works on a plot level, most audiences are not going to connect with the film, and therefore probably even it won't even get made, because if the story doesn't work, then nobody's going to finance the film.
सो व्हेन वी जब हम स्क्रीन प्ले राइटिंग की बात करते हैं तो हमारा मेथड क्या होना चाहिए? जो भी स्क्रीन प्ले राइटर है उसे सबसे पहले क्या करना चाहिए?
एक्चुअली कोई एक फॉर्मूला तो है नहीं इसमें. So, as there are many ways to get into the first ideas that you get, some people are inspired by an image. Some people are inspired, like people like Fellini. They were very image oriented, so they started their writing on the basis of an image. Some people read a book and they find the beautiful book, so they want to adapt it. Some people get a basic, it can be a character. There's somebody in your life who's an amazing character. You want to make that the basis. So the बीज जो starting point है, बीज है, वो कहीं से भी आ सकता है. There's no but then from there you have to try and make it, at least the method I use nowadays, which is a bit different than when I started making Chai Pani. When I made my first feature film, I had a very burning desire to talk about something which was a major issue that touched me, and which I knew a lot of my fellow filmmakers had faced. So that film was, so that was a very instinctive. I was much younger. I had read about screenwriting. I had studied in the US at NYU. I had studied in Paris in a French film school, university. So I had a training as a screenwriter, but I hadn't had as much training as today, like 10 years later, 15 years later, where I've continued to study script writing, because for me, that is the foundation of a film. And therefore, for me, apart from, of course, direction, which one keeps studying also, but screenwriting is really something where I put my concentration on. And so now I think it's very good that before you actually write down the screenplay, you first concentrate on the central idea first. And actually, ideally, you should even just write a pitch as if you were selling that most important idea, which is the main external story, the main what your main character wants, and what is stopping your main character from getting that. That is the core of your external story, so that at the plot level, your story works. And of course, you should also work out how the story ends, so that and you write like maybe 3 paragraphs: the beginning, the middle, and the end, which clears the story in your mind first. And that phase can last maybe a month, it can last 2 months, depending on you try out various endings, you try out various characters, etc., and you bring it down to a very core idea. And once you have that, then you have your main story, and then you start expanding it. You start from that, then from let's say 3 paragraph, you move on to a page, then maybe 3 pages, then maybe 10 pages. You do an outline. From the outline, then you start working on various versions of, and at each stage you can do various versions. So you try out various ideas. When you don't have 100, go straight away and you write 100-page script, then it's difficult to change things, because you have to change a lot of things. But when you have very few words to change, then you can just concentrate on the main core ideas, and you can keep experimenting, trying out various things till you are satisfied. And I would suggest move on to the next stage when you think you are happy. There's no set time, there's no set formula for any of this. this is a creative field. So, it depends on you, depends on the kind of story you are telling, how complex it is, how complex your characters are, etc. So all this is very intuitive, but this is the best way. I think once you have your outline, then you have the all your number of scenes, and then you can start writing your first version of the script. And that
Mhm.
process could take something like, I don't know, 3 months, 6 months, depending on how much time you have, and also how much you want to experiment. So
Mhm.
once you have that, then the writing then becomes much easier because you worked out the big picture elements. And often people want to jump in straight away, and I was one of them. As a young writer, first time writer, you just want everything on the page immediately. You want to write it down, you want to write the scenes, you want to direct even every detail of it and everything immediately. But the problem is that at some point you lose track of the central, because you get into details. You get into details which are important and which have to be there, but I think it's better to work in phases.
Mhm.
Like
Okay.
a painter makes a sketch first, so he knows his, and then he tries out many sketches till he gets the overall composition of the painting before he starts deciding on, should the expression of the face be like this or like that, and how subtle should it be. And so all these details can come in later on, and that's the fun of writing. But first, work out the big ideas, then it's easier to get into each detail of each part of
Mhm.
your uh, story.
What are the common mistakes people make during the structure of the screenplay? When you structure the screenplay, what are the common mistakes that most script writers ignore or make?
Well, I don't know. There are all kinds of mistakes one can make, but I think one way to get around, one will not make a mistake if one stays on the central conflict. The
Mhm.
film should work at the plot level. It should, of course, if it is to be a great film, then the plot level is only the surface of the story. But and the inner story, the how the main character is going to evolve, or the main characters will change, and why they will change, the thematic elements, they are probably, and emotional elements, they are probably more important in the long run. But unless the film works on a plot level, the film, most audiences are not going to connect with the film, and therefore probably even it won't even get made, because if it doesn't get, if the story doesn't work, then nobody's going to finance the film. So it has to work at the plot level, and for it to work at the plot level, I would say there are a number of things, but one of the most important thing is that the main conflict, what is the story about, what is the central conflict of the story, that should be very, very clear and very strong from beginning to end. What does the
Mhm.
main character want, who is the antagonist, or what is the force which is the antagonist, which is stopping him from getting him what he wants or she wants.
Mhm.
That is the backbone of the story, and everything else is it's like a, imagine a clothesline where all the scenes are the clothes which are hung on the clothesline. The clothesline is the central conflict, so all the scenes can be hung on it. And then it works, because you want to
Mhm.
know, the audience wants to know what will happen next. So that, I
Okay.
think, is a very important thing. And the second very important thing, uh, some people think even more important than the main conflict, but I think it's equally important, is that the main audience, the main characters, there should be some kind of empathy that the audience feels for the main character. That doesn't mean that they should necessarily be heroes or that they should necessarily be really nice people. But there should be an emotional connection between the main character and what, because otherwise the audience doesn't care, if he gets what he wants or if she gets what she wants, if you don't have some kind of emotional connect. So that is, I think, a very key thing, and that is at the level of script writing.